Okay, the next part of our video is, as I discussed, we actually need to control the existing vegetation in the yard. So I want to control all the weeds, the existing turf grass, so we can start with a blank slate. And so to do that, I'm going to use a herbicide called glyphosate. It's a non-selective herbicide. Glyphosate is a unique chemistry because it is very effective at controlling the weeds, but it has a very high KOC value, so it binds very tightly to organic matter. And so basically, once it hits the soil, it is not going to control any other plants, and it's not going to move off in the soil solution. It's going to stay put. And so this is a product that I picked up at just a local farm store. It was $20 for a gallon. I also bought some spray dye. So this is a dye that you put in the spray. It allows you to see what you have and haven't sprayed. So you can imagine when you're spraying a product like glyphosate, a non-selective, so any plant material that it comes into contact with, it will kill. And so you can see that I have a garden and things. I'm going to have to be very careful about keeping this material from actually landing on those desirable plants. I'm actually going to use some cardboard, and you'll see it's an extremely calm evening. You must do this when it's calm. You would not want to attempt to do this during windy conditions. And so this is a perfect time. I'm going to do it in the evening. We're going to let it dry, come out tomorrow. I will probably irrigate it off a leaf blade sometime tomorrow afternoon so my dogs and kids can run around in the yard without any issues. So this is a 41% solution of glyphosate. I'm looking at the label. You're trying to look under the handheld equipment. It says here, for perennial, difficult to control weeds, we want to use a 5% solution. And so for a 5% solution, they're saying 6.5 fluid ounces of this product for every gallon of water. My backpack sprayer holds 4 gallons. I'm only going to put 3 gallons in it. Just a little tip of advice. I have not used too many backpack sprayers that give you the best seal up top, so I don't typically like to fill them right to the brim. I like to give myself a little bit of space so that it's not sloshing and potentially coming out and running down. Trust me, you do not want to get this dye on your skin, on your clothes, because it will not be coming off. So I'm going to mix up 3 gallons. So as I said, 6.5 fluid ounces of glyphosate for every gallon. So 6.5 times 3. I'm going to use about 19.5 fluid ounces of this for every 3 gallons of solution that I put in here. So in terms of my PPE, I got my closed-toed shoes, my pants, my safety glasses. I've got my nitrile gloves. Okay. Put some water in my sprayer. I don't have a great idea how many gallons it's going to take me to do the entire yard. My guess is I would think it should take less than 10 gallons, but we'll find out. So I'm hoping to do it in about two or three backpack tanks, but I'll have a much better idea after I spray this first tank. I have about 1.5 gallons of water in here. I'm going to add my glyphosate. Rinse out my container. And then for my spray dye, it says to add 2 to 3 ounces for every 3 gallons of liquid. So again, I'm mixing 3 gallons. You want to be very careful with this. You can see I got a little on my glove. I'm going to rinse that off right away because I know it can just run everywhere. So I'm going to put 3 ounces of this in. Again, I'll rinse my container. Okay, I'm gonna fill up to the 3 gallon mark now. Got my 3 gallons in. Put my lid on, make sure it's tight. I'm gonna give this a little slosh. Make sure it's good and mixed. And I forgot to mention, but you know, I checked this sprayer before I mixed it all up and made sure that it didn't leak and that it did spray. You know, these backpack sprayers, they're often can get a lot of leaks. You want to discover that before you've got the product mixed in it already. So in terms of spraying the glyphosate, one thing that you do not want to do is you do not want to walk through the spray, okay? Because pretty much wherever you walk, you're going to kill the grass. So I'm going to start at the far corner and basically work backwards to prevent from walking in the spray. As I get around some of my sensitive plants, I'm going to hold the spray tip a little bit closer to the ground, try to get the spray directed. And when I get around my garden, you'll see I actually have some cardboard that I'm going to lay up against the plants to prevent them from getting any potential drift onto them. So we'll see. Like I said, hopefully it's about three backpacks or less for my sake, and we'll go from here. I've just finished spraying the yard. I took about 2 tanks or 6 gallons of total solution, so it did get a little difficult there at the end to spray to see exactly where I was spraying. I should have mentioned that I'm going to do this 2 times. So I just sprayed. I'm going to wait about 10 days. I'm going to make a second application. I do that because you'll see that some of these turfgrass species are actually pretty difficult to control from 1 application of glyphosate. It can sometimes take 2. And especially for those that are going to use a backpack sprayer like I do, it's inevitable that you're going to miss a few spots, so you're able to go back and touch those up. So glyphosate, in terms of activity, it definitely takes all of 7 days and even sometimes 10 days before you see the full effect. So if you got to the point where I just got to, you are now pot committed. You have actually pretty much just killed your yard. So you have went off the deep end, but I will tell you it can be a really worthwhile endeavor. So pros, you won't have to mow your yard now for the next month. And we will follow up this video. You will see that I'll keep you updated about when we begin to see activity. I'm sure there'll be a few skips out here that you all get to poke some fun at, but we will clean those up with the second application, and then we'll be ready to get right into the seed bed prep, the seeding, and then the post-plant care. That's the fun part of watching those young turfgrass seedlings come up and hopefully looking for a nice lush yard when it's all said and done.
Today's date is Saturday, August 15th. It has been 10 days since the initial application of the non-selective herbicide glyphosate to my home lawn. If you've been following along, this is my home lawn renovation project. This is a project that I get a lot of questions about in my job as a turfgrass scientist. And so after we applied the herbicide, we began to notice the symptoms of the herbicide taking effect and beginning to control the plant. Really began to notice a loss in turgidity, where the plants didn't spring back up about 4 to 5 days after the application, and really at that 6, 7, 8 day mark, really began to notice a loss in color, where we have a lot of, starting to get that necrotic straw-like color. And here we are at 10 days, really almost no green leaf tissue. Some of the broadleaf plants, like broadleaf plantain and dandelions, still have some color in the leaf blades, but I think they are going to be fully controlled. So you may remember that I had anticipated needing to apply the herbicide twice. I'm all about trying to apply the least amount of herbicide as possible, and just seeing what I see, I think we got adequate control. So I'm actually not going to go forth and make a second application. You may see that maybe you've skipped an area where you can just clearly see that you have no symptomology. Those are areas we could go back and make a second application right now and clean those areas up so you get really good control of those existing turfgrass plants. After I applied the herbicide on August 5th, I kept my family and my pets off of the yard. We stayed out front for 2 days, and then the morning of August 7th, I came out and used my small sprinkler and just went around and irrigated the entire lawn. Not for a long period of time, but just long enough to try and rinse off the leaf blades. I could still see the tracker dye that I used, so I could see where I was spraying. I could still see that on the leaf blades. I wanted to get that rinsed off so that it wouldn't rub off on our shoes, and also if there was any residual herbicide sitting on the leaf blades, we were able to rinse that down into the soil where we tightly bound to the organic matter. And so the whole purpose behind what we're doing is seedbed preparation. And there are really 2 primary purposes of seedbed preparation. The first is to try and ensure good soil to seed contact. We want to make sure that when we spread these seeds that they reach their way down to the soil and don't get hung up in the crowns of the turf grass plants or the leaves, because if they germinate off of the turf grass soil or off of the soil, they're going to have a very difficult time surviving. And so the second piece is also just to control the existing vegetation or eliminate any competition from weeds. So we took care of that first part, the herbicide, controlled the existing vegetation and hopefully the competition from the weeds. Now we're going to get into that soil to seed contact piece. So what I want to do next is I want to go and try to remove as much of the decaying leaf material from the turf grass canopy as possible. It's kind of twofold. I know that from my experiences, it makes the power raking process go a lot smoother. The power rake just has more power to actually get down there into the soil and create some slits. And if you don't remove these plants now, when you do power rake, you're going to see that it just leaves a lot more debris on the soil surface. And I just find it much easier right now to go through and try to scalp off these plants. And so I did a little test area. What I saw was if I put my mower at the very lowest setting, it was kind of dragging, getting hung up on the little humps and bumps in my yard. So I actually just clicked the front up one notch. And so the front's sitting a little higher than the back, and it actually moves through the yard pretty nice. Some of the plants have really laid over just from us trampling on the yard for the past few days. And so we'll see after I make this first cut. I may go through and stand up some of those plants with my leaf rake and come through and cut them again. I'm anticipating I'm going to cut this twice. Maybe I'll even cut it 3 times. This doesn't take very long to do. It's going to take me no more than 15-20 minutes to mow the backyard here, and we'll see what it looks like when I'm done. I've just finished scalping the yard in 2 different directions. Looks pretty good. There are some places that look really good, some other places I wish it would have cleaned it up a little bit better, but overall we accomplished the goal. We've controlled the existing vegetation. We removed a lot of that leaf litter that was decaying on the surface, and so we're ready for the next step, which will be renting a power rake. I've contacted my local equipment rental. There's 2 different places that have 2 different types. So I'm gonna go check them both out. They're both about the same, about $70 for a $12 rental or a 12-hour rental. So still trying to stay within my $150 budget. So just to recap, you may remember the keys to this process: 1, ensuring that you have a really well-functioning either backpack sprayer or pump sprayer. Make sure that you test it. In terms of applying the glyphosate, it's absolutely imperative that you do it under low wind conditions. If that material drifts off and lands on other surrounding vegetation, you're going to have some upset neighbors, or in my case could have been an upset wife with an injured garden. But luckily everything looks really good. We applied the product, we stayed off the lawn, we assessed the symptoms. Overall, I have real consistent symptoms across the lawn. You can see the entire place is straw. Like if you would have any skips, you would see that those areas just would still be healthy and green. So we are really ready to take the next step. I hope you stick around. Moving forward, we're going to power rake the lawn. We're immediately going to seed it, put down some starter fertilizer afterwards, and then we're going to go through the post-plant care. So there'll be more details in those videos as they come, but we're planning to take care of this hopefully Tuesday or Wednesday of this coming week, weather dependent. So I hope you stick around. I hope you have a good week.